there's no point growing stuff just because it's good to grow. You've got to want to eat it. With wild garlic, for me, it's the fact that when you cook it, that garlic flavour is great. No, I'm just thinking about stopping the world in its onward march to crapness that seems to be happening at the moment.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Food Forest podcast. Today with us we have a guy who planted more than 1 million trees. His name is Alan Carter, a passionate food forester, writer and grower based in Aberdeen, Scotland, Europe. Alan has been developing one of the most northerly food forests in Europe and has been sharing his insights through his writings, especially a cool book he has written not too long ago. Alan, how are you doing? Welcome to the podcast.
I'm good, thanks.
So you planted more than 1 million trees. That's incredible. How do you do that?
By working as a tree planter, it used to be my job, and then I studied forestry originally at university, and then went into forestry.
And where did you plant those trees?
Round and about Aberdeenshire, the area where I live mostly.
Yeah, I've traveled through Scotland, and there is not a lot of trees actually.
No. By the end of the 19th century, we were down to something like 5% forest cover. So actually what you see today is quite an increase. Scotland was the most deforested nation in Europe.
And how did that came to be? Was it because of the war? They had to build ships?
That contributed, yes. A long history of agriculture in a country where trees grow quite slowly. And the other thing is, since the Victorian era, most of the land has been in big shooting estates where they're not interested in trees, they're interested in having as many deer as possible. And deer aren't very compatible with trees. So a big combination of factors.
Yeah, I was visiting a deforestation place not too far from Loch Ness Lake, where you have the famous monster. And there they said they had to hire a hunter to make sure that the deer would not eat the new planted trees. And they said that, in fact, one of the easiest things to do would be to introduce wolves again.
Yes, easy in some ways, difficult in others. Culturally difficult, but ecologically, yeah, it would make a big difference. Wolves, bears, lynx, we basically got rid of all the big predators, and for some strange reason, we're overrun with herbivores.
Would you be able to introduce them again, you think?
It's not going to be easy. There is a lot of resistance. One of Scotland's main industries is now sheep farming, and of course, sheep and wolves don't mix very well, or too well. I think the first step is the lynx. I think that's more feasible than the likes of the wolf. I mean, the rest of Europe, wolves have sort of reintroduced themselves. They've just walked back from Russia and other parts, but that's not going to happen in Scotland.
Yeah, well, they can't swim 40 kilometers, right? From Calais to
Exactly.
Dover. I think it's a bit too far for wolves, right?
And bears.
And bears. Yeah. And lynx, they would be less of a risk to the sheep?
Yes, I mean, lynx are ambush predators that stay close to trees, and sheep in Scotland tend to be kept in open fields. And also, lynx are very much specialist roe deer predators. So, if there are roe deer, they'll go for them.
Yeah, and I've been wondering. So cows, most of the people keep cows like in fields, but cows are actually forest animals. The same with chickens. Chickens are in the best condition if they're like in between trees. How is it with sheep? Could sheep be like in semi-forested areas? Could they thrive there?
Um, they're not naturally a forest animal in the way, as you say, cows and chickens are. Um, they don't tend to go well with trees, but in Scotland there have been trials done of agroforestry, keeping sheep in more sheltered areas, and it's it's quite successful because Scotland's very windy country, cold. Sheep actually use most of their energy just staying warm and alive rather than growing. Uh, so yeah, there is potential for that, but not a tradition of it. So it's another new thing.
Yeah, yeah. We've been talking about sheep and big macro problems here in
Right?
Scotland, but you actually wrote a book called A Food Forest in Your Garden, which is not at all mega big, but like how to do it in a very tiny plot. So sorry to like go in that other direction for a while, but I think it's very interesting, also because it's an island, and like you say, wolves, they can go to other parts of mainland Europe, but they can't swim across the channel. Um, Before we delve into yeah, how to create a food forest in tiny gardens, which is one of your many specialties. Um, do you think that if you look at France, there the hunters actually plant forests to hunt? Um, why why isn't that happening in Scotland?
I, there's a bit of a history lesson required to answer that.
Okay.
But we don't have the kind of working class, ordinary hunting tradition that most of Europe has. Scotland, a few centuries ago, was on the wrong side of a war in these islands, and the people were dispossessed from the land, cleared from it to a large degree, um, and most so uh, over half of Scotland's land is owned by fewer than 500 families. It's all in very large landholdings. And so what the people want to do doesn't really come into it. We have basically a sort of aristocratic tradition of hunting. In the Victorian era, when there were revolutions across Europe, we somehow failed to have one.
Ooh.
And uh, Scotland was seen as an opportunity to kind of recreate this aristocratic fantasy
Oh
of
my
the
God.
chase with a subservient peasantry. Uh, so, yeah, we have a very odd hunting tradition um, where we have intensive grouse shooting, where entire glens are managed, are burned to produce new shoots for grouse, which are then sort of shot kind of for target practice, um, and the also the deer hunting where they keep the numbers really high, and again it's basically for prestige rather than
Hmm.
for meat, so it's really got nothing to do with a productive ecosystem.
That's super interesting. I didn't know that difference. I've been always wondering that because I love France. I've lived in France. I have a lot of projects we design in France. I don't live far from France as well. And every time I see like pieces of places that are forested, most of the time it's like hunters reforesting the area.
Yeah,
So I'm always thinking, well, thank the Lord that there are hunters, because without them, they wouldn't have been so much forests, like the new forests that are growing right now. Though I don't eat meat myself, so it's not that I go out and hunt, but I still have the feeling that it's thanks to them that there are so many forests. And it is true, there it's really a working class thing. You can either go mountain biking today or you can go hunting today, and people have a very high ethical standard most of the time, that if they shoot something, they prepare it, they eat every part of it, so it's a very sustainable thing if they do it the right way. So there the French Revolution happened, but it didn't happen in Scotland, and that's the reason why there is not enough trees.
yeah, ultimately.
Oh my god. That's crazy. But fortunately, there are people like Alan Carter, like you, who write books and say, okay, don't cry that there are not enough trees in your country. Do it in your own garden. And why not make your trees edible as well? You wrote a book, A Food Forest in Your Garden. Plant it, grow it, cook it. Um, you teach people how to grow food in a very tiny space. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was really of necessity. I've never had a big garden, so that's the space I have to grow in and what I've kind of got used to working with. Um, but I think in some ways that's kind of useful experience because most people that's what they've got. They don't have a big field or farm to grow it on. Um, so what I have is an allotment from the city council here, which is 20 meters by 10. I have a few other little bits I've managed to
Can you
uh,
quickly tell what an
get some use
allotment
of.
is? Because not everybody knows this system.
Right, it's an area of land allocated by the local authorities for people to grow food on. So you rent it from the local council, um, and you have it as long as you want it, but you can't sell it or anything like that. When you're done with it, it goes back and gets allocated to another person.
So you got an allotment, and so you know that if you plant a tree there, you can have it until you die, basically,
Yes, or until you leave.
or until you leave. All right. So you started with your allotment, and instead of growing lettuce, you started growing trees.
Yes, not immediately. I didn't. People often ask about how I sort of planned my forest garden. In many ways, I didn't. It just kind of happened. Um, at the time I got my allotment, it was in 2000. Uh, I was already familiar with garden ideas, and I was trying out various species, but I didn't get the allotment and think, I will plant a forest garden. I just started experimenting, essentially. And the other aspect of that is all the books I had, um, they tended to be experience from the south of England, uh, or even from Australia, certainly not from the north of Scotland. So I very much had to experiment with the species and to find out what worked in my climate. Um, and the useful thing is that the kind of adaptations I've had to make for my climate also work as adaptations to a small garden.
Hmm.
Because in Scotland, we don't actually have a lot of tree species that we can use. So we can't, for instance, grow walnuts, chestnuts,
Oh my God.
figs.
Oh no.
Yeah. So the one nut tree we can really use is hazelnuts.
Yeah.
Um,
Phew.
and yeah, and that goes for quite a lot of the categories. Um, the other thing is that forest structure in Scotland is not like forest structure in France or south of England or wherever. We have a lot fewer layers to the forest. So if you go for a walk in high forest in Scotland, there's not a lot in the ground layer by and large. So there's no point planting a high forest in your allotment and having lots of growth that isn't edible and you can't reach. So I've really kind of majored in the ground layer with sort of fewer and more spread out trees than you might have in a more southerly setup. So I sometimes say it's not a food forest, it's a food thicket.
Yeah, but mostly perennials, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do have quite a few self-seeding species as well, but the
Who behave
perennials.
like perennials.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And that's the next best thing, of course. Can you maybe explain? You're in Aberdeen, Scotland. How high is it? How far away is it from the equator? If you would like compare it to other places, what kind of climate does it have? How cold can it get?
Yeah. Um, it's in the north of Scotland, northeast, very near the sea, which moderates the climate quite a bit. So coldest temperature we've ever had here is -15. Um, but usually in a winter, we actually have very unpredictable weather. So we can have snow for 3 months of a year, or we can
Wow.
have no snow at all in a winter. We rarely know what we're going to get in advance, and often in winter the temperature will go sort of below freezing, above freezing, below freezing, above freezing, which actually is probably more challenging than just a solid freeze and a good blanket of snow. But in many ways, the more challenging season is maybe the summer.
What is it?
Pe- People always quote the sort of minimum temperature that a plant can take, but in a maritime climate like the UK, that's not actually that helpful. A lot of species need summer heat
Yeah.
more than they're bothered by winter cold. And we don't get a lot of summer heat.
Oh, darn it. Yeah.
20 degrees is a nice hot day here. We've never had 30 degrees in
Oh my
Aberdeen.
God.
We've had actually a glorious summer this year, and that means we've had quite a lot of days around sort of 24 degrees.
Yeah. So for people who are like wanting to situate it on the map, it's like the south of Norway, the north of Newfoundland. So it's pretty north. Eh?
Yeah, but we do have the Gulf Stream, bringing sort of temperature up from Brazil, which helps. And the west coast of Scotland is actually frost free because of the Gulf Stream. We're on the east, and we're behind the Cairngorm Mountains, so we have a bit of a rain shadow. So we're slightly more continental and slightly drier than other parts of Scotland.
Yeah. So because it doesn't have enough warm days during summer, it's for example difficult to grow tomatoes.
Yes, you can't grow tomatoes outside here. I've never seen that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have a lot of respect that you still look so happy without being able to grow tomatoes. Outside.
Well, I do, but in a greenhouse.
Yeah, no, of course. So, walk us around your food forest. How does it look like? What species do you have?
Um, well, in the tree layer, I should say the tree layer is mostly no more than sort of 3 meters high. Uh, there are things like assorted apples, uh, plum, both domestica and Prunus salicina, Japanese plum. Um, then there are tree species. I have a Tuna sinensis,
Oh yeah,
which just about hangs on. It gets sort of frosted back every year, but that's kind of like I don't have to trim it. It gets
yeah.
trimmed by the frost.
The chicken soup tree. You use the leaves
Yeah,
to make chicken soup or other dishes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I have small-leaved lime, which is my favorite of the lime trees, which
Use
I
it in
use at
salads?
yes, yeah. Um, And then I have Haragiri, Calopanix septimlobus, which is a Japanese sansai. It's a 30-meter tree in the wild, so again I have to keep it pruned. But it's the leaf bundles you eat.
It's like
Again,
the young shoots.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
The older ones you don't eat, right?
That's right. No, I mean that's the general theme I find to eating from the forest garden is you're eating fresh growth, fresh shoots.
Except a mulberry that you can eat like all year round. Can you have mulberries or not?
Afraid not. No.
Ah, okay.
Well, um, they do grow here. They just don't fruit. Uh, so I've never tried growing it just for shoots.
Oh, yeah, well, it has one of the most high amount of proteins per hectare that you can imagine, more than soy actually. You can have more proteins per hectare with mulberry trees than with soy. So we definitely try it out just for the leaves.
Right. Ah, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's interesting. You grow a lot of leaves as well because leaves they don't need the heat as much as fruit do. Other leaf perennials you're growing?
Well, most of my garden is leaf perennials, really.
Right.
Um, so coming down from the tree layer, then the shrub layer, uh, raspberries are this kind of saving grace of growing in
Mm,
Scotland.
yeah.
Really, we can't grow a lot of things, but we can really grow raspberries, and they're really nice, and they're a forest edge species naturally, so they fit into
And they don't
that
like it when
setup.
it's not too hot, so it's actually
Yeah,
perfect for your climate.
quite. Yeah.
Ah, amazing.
Uh, Other shrubs or shrub-sized things. So I have things like Udo, Aralia cordata, which is actually a herbaceous perennial, but it grows as high as some of the trees, frankly. Another Japanese sansai there, and again the fresh growth that you use there. Um, but actually, the ground layer is both my diverse and my most productive layer, and a lot of leaf and shoot species there again. Um, so maybe one of the most useful is wild garlic or bear leek.
Oh yeah,
Um,
love those.
yeah, so we have a season of about 3 months of that here,
Wow.
and it starts in about February. So you've got it when very little else is growing, and of course it'll grow in the shade,
I
which
love
not a
it.
lot of things will. And it illustrates a lot of things about forest gardening for me, including the fact that you mentioned my book is called something like Planet Grow It, Eat It. And I think the last of those is most important because if you're not going to eat it, what's the what's the point? Um, and often it's how you cook, how you prepare a plant that really brings it alive. And I've grown some plants for years and kind of been a bit sort of dubious about them until I finally find a particular way of cooking it. And that really transforms it. So with wild garlic, for me, it's the fact that when you cook it, that garlic flavor is great, but when you cook it, it drives off the garlic flavor. It's quite a volatile oil, I guess. Um, and you're left with just a sort of oniony green, and that transforms it into essentially a herb, into a bulk vegetable.
More like a
Um,
leek.
yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. That I use as the base of all sorts of things.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Do you have any tubers or bulbs?
Um, Well, my main tuber, to be honest, is potato, which people don't tend to think of as a forest garden
But why
species.
not?
But in
Leave
fact,
some and they come back.
yeah, it is a perennial. We grow it like an annual, but the perennating organ is the tuber. Um, and it likes a nice or, organic matter rich soil, which you very much get from forest gardening. So uh, just make sure you have some clearings and you can grow potatoes very well. Other tubers, I have erythronium, fawn lily, um, and I find the hybrid erythronium pagoda is the best. It's a sterile hybrid, but it's about 5 times bigger than any of the species. And again, it's shade tolerant. The only really starchy crop I find that will grow well in the shade, in quite substantial shade here.
So erythronium, people use them a lot as an ornamental plant in their garden, but you can also
Yes.
eat them.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay, and what part you eat of them? The bulb?
The bulb.
All right, and
It
and like how what would you compare it with?
it's kind of like any starchy bulb you can think of. If you uh, cross-cut it and fry the slices. They're quite like plantain chips, if you've ever
Ooh.
had
Oh
those.
yeah.
So that's what it reminds me of most. But you can boil it as well, and then it's almost like a potato, um, a bit less floury, perhaps.
Yeah. Oh, that's a cool thing. That's what I really love about food foresting is that there are so many plants that people have been growing in their garden just as ornamentals, like hostas, for example.
Yeah,
People are
daylilies.
like sick of looking at them, like yeah, it's like so cliche to have them in your border, and then suddenly you realize, oh my god, they're edible, and then whoo, they go up on your list of favorite plants because they're edible. Yeah, and daylilies are one of my favorite. Hemerocalis. Do you have those as well?
Yes, yeah,
Oh
quite a few
yeah.
species of those.
And one of your part of your book is like it's plan it, grow it, eat it. Do you have certain recipes in your book?
I have a few recipes. It's more about cooking methods. I rarely follow a set recipe, and the big thing about forest garden is the diversity. So you're often cooking with 30 different species, and what you've got changes every day. So you can't really get a recipe, go down and get 100 grams of this and that. It's more like going foraging. You come back with stuff, and you need cooking methods that will deal with that stuff. So I
It's more a
tend to use,
mindset.
yeah, I tend to use methods like stir frying, which are good for using that kind of diversity. You just sort of chuck
Yeah.
lots of things in.
Yeah, and then you can like just add whatever you have. Yeah, I like that. I have a good friend who started a collective called the Jungle Chefs, which is basically like just a group of chefs who like give cooking workshops from the food forest, but without using recipes because how on earth do you create a recipe? Like you never know what's gonna be ripe at that moment, and then you have all this harvest. You just have to like have this mindset of all right, give it to me, and then I will like do something with it no matter what. And yeah, she tells me that takes really new mindsets to people to think about that way because we're like used to now saying okay 200 grams of this 100 grams of this so many teaspoons of that. Have you noticed something similar? That people have a hard time doing that?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's a bit of a disappointment that restaurants haven't been more interested in this stuff because there are so many flavors, there's
Oh
such
yeah.
diversity. Anyone's into their food should be into to forest gardens, basically. But the reality of restaurants is they have a menu. They need lots of um, produce that will fit that menu, and they can't actually handle the diversity. I'm quite jealous of places like Food Forest Kettlebrook in
Oh yeah.
Netherlands, I think, where they have a sort of associated chef.
Yeah, I was just thinking about them actually when you were talking about because he's like Emil van der Staak is the very famous chef from the Nieuwe Winkel,
Hmm.
who is associated with Kittelbrook, the Dutch food forest, and he does it like what you're describing. He's like this has this master brain and say okay now this is ripe, all right, let's just do something with it. And of course every season you get to know new plants, and then little by little you get to know what you can do with what. But it takes a new mindset. But people are standing in line to eat at his restaurant,
Mm.
and like every time his new season opens, it gets fully booked for months in advance. So there is a market for it, and not only there. Like I've been, I was giving a keynote at an award ceremony of like the best plant-based restaurants of the world. And I talked about the eat more trees concept, that we should eat more tree products, more food forests. And there was a Japanese top chef who actually won that year. She won the female best vegetable chef cook of the world. And she said, "Yeah, Louis, I'm so happy you like said it. This eat more trees philosophy. We've been doing it for decades without like calling it that, without really knowing what how we should name it." And she says that she also goes just in the woods and forages, and then makes amazing stuff with it.
What we do have in the community I stay in that's really useful is there's this food share scheme. So in the community centre where I stay, there's a room where there's just lots of food on tables, basically, and if you live in the community, you can go and take some of that food. And also they make a big pot of soup every day, and you can go and get soup. But they don't bill it as a food kitchen, or what do you call it?
Like the place
Well,
where, like these community kitchens?
I yeah, they bill it as a food waste project,
Ah,
basically,
okay, yeah.
and they get a lot of stuff in from supermarkets that's going out of date. So that's actually the bulk of it. But I also find it really useful when I've got gluts that I can take them up there, and essentially whatever you take will go. So it's another way of using diversity because there's a great diversity of people in the neighbourhood. So somebody's always interested. And actually, this year I've been experimenting a bit, trying to take more stuff just to see what there is more interest in, because some things are just too weird for for anyone.
Like, what the hell are we gonna do with this?
Yeah, yeah. So people have got to have sort of some idea. But wild garlic was really popular because I think again it's a flavour that people know, so they can sort of do something with that, and also it's got a long enough season that I was able to take it quite regularly for a few months. But then you've also got the different cultures. So the kind of Eastern Europeans liked the sorrel and the spignol, which is a dill substitute, um, and then the folk from Bangladesh and such like were more into the leaf crops. They could do
Oh yeah.
things with that. So
Oh, nice.
that was an interesting aspect to it as well.
What was the most surprising thing you saw that they did with one of your things?
Um,
One of your
Unfortunately, I
crops?
don't get to see what they're doing with them by and large. They just take them
Ah,
away, and I don't get to see it.
it would be
I, ha-
interesting to follow up.
I have had pakora with wild garlic in. Definitely good.
You have had what?
Pakora with wild garlic in.
Ooh, nice. So like the fried Indian thingies, right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
with chickpea flour.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I really love those. Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. When people who are listening who want to start out with a food forest on a very small plot of land, what would you recommend them to start with?
There's two answers I give to that. Folk expect a list of plants, but one of them is what you like. There's no point growing stuff just because it's you know good to grow. You've got to want to eat it. And the other thing is just experiment. Uh, so many of these species are unusual, and a lot of them are even quite difficult to get hold of. So again, don't sort of draw up a big plan that actually you're never going to realize. Just see what you can get your hands on, basically, and start trying them out. Try out growing them and try out tasting them as well.
So basically, don't think too much and just do it.
Yeah, just
Experiment. Get
grow
some
stuff,
plants,
eat
put them in the
stuff.
ground, and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I I see that some people really have difficulties with this when they're starting out. They have this kind of analysis paralysis that they would like to start out, but they're like, oh my god, but what if I'm gonna do something wrong? Most of the time, maybe they're perfectionists or want to do things too good.
Yeah,
How would you, what would you advise them to do?
I kind of blame permaculture for this. um, Forest gardening predates permaculture by centuries, but it got
Millennia,
taken.
even.
Yeah, absolutely. It got taken up by permaculture, and most people now come across forest gardening through permaculture. And permaculture has its strengths, but it emphasizes, and I think overemphasizes, the plan, the grand plan. And yeah, people think they have to start with this really complex plan that's got everything in its place. And that's just totally unrealistic for most people starting out in forest gardening. So, in some ways, to be honest, your best model is actually ordinary annual growing, where people are used to just trying stuff. They'll get a new they'll see a new plant in the seed catalog. They'll go, "Oh, that's interesting." They'll try it. Uh, the only difference is that some of these plants will stick around,
For the
and
rest of your and your
s-
grandchild's life.
some of them will take over your garden in time. Yeah, but in a good way.
Yeah. But that's actually a nice way to look at it. Like, okay, you check out the seed catalog and say, "Oh, I gotta try out this new variety." It's just the same like with the raspberries. You have gazillion of varieties of raspberries. Like, oh, nice, I'm gonna try out this one. I'm gonna try out this one, and then there's nothing that can really go wrong. But I totally agree with what you say about the design, and I'm like talking against my own business now because I have a landscape design firm. We design small gardens to entire private islands and everything in between. Uh, but I often say, well, go and do it. You know, the best learning discovery is just go out and do it, see what happens. And of course, I agree on some things a plan is really handy. But yes, start small and then go bigger and bigger. What's the biggest failure you did during all your years?
Of course, so no failures, just learning.
I like that.
But one of one of my biggest learning things, well, certainly some things I've introduced that I wouldn't
How
from the
invasive they
start. But
were.
exactly.
Which ones?
Um, well, top of that list might be wood avens. It's a native plant. Most of the worst offenders are native woodland plants, actually. Um, so wood avens, you're meant to be able to extract a clove flavor from the roots of it.
Oh yeah,
But
Geum urbanum is the scientific name. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, it's
exactly.
true. I heard that too with the cloth thing, but I've never tried it actually.
Yeah, well, don't. Because basically, I have a jar of cloves that I bought when I was a student, and I'm
You
still
still have it.
using it. Yeah, yeah. So it's not really something I need to put effort into. Um, and it's forests are its natural habitat. So we talk in forest gardening about how oh it excludes the weeds because most weeds are annuals and there isn't space for them. But when you have a well-established forest garden, the forest weeds start to find it, uh, and the ones that are adapted to spreading through that kind of thicket stage. And yeah, Wood Avens is definitely one of them.
Other ones you would like to warn people against?
It is very specific, is the problem. It's very sort of climate specific, site
Region
specific.
specific.
So,
Yeah.
for instance, one that I've spent quite a bit of time eliminating from most of the garden is Alexander's, um, Smyrnum osatrum. A useful plant in some ways, but I let it seed too much, basically, and it was coming up too successfully, basically, and I had to spend a few years knocking it back. To be honest, that's kind of often the case. I need to find the niche for a plant, and particularly with the self-seeders, you need to sort of start them seeding. You need to charge up the seed bank, if you like. And that does sometimes involve letting them get a little bit out of hand. Another one that I've started giving much less space to is turnip-rooted chervil,
Oh yeah.
Eryphyllum bulbosum. So yeah, it's always a learning process, basically.
Yeah.
I don't think that'll ever end, to be honest. I just learned about mulberries today.
Yeah, no, of course. There are, yeah, so Eric Toensmeyer wrote a book about edible leaves, and about that they're actually one of the most nutritious vegetables in the world. And the book is for free. You can just download the PDF for free online. There's also an episode on the Food Forest podcast with Eric Tunsmeyer where we talk about it, and it's just amazing. You know, our ancestors or our nephews, the monkeys, or the apes, the primates, they are still eating the leaves. They're smart, you know. It's full of nutrition. In Asia, also a lot of people, yeah, still use the shoots in their daily food or in high
It,
class restaurants.
it's one of the things I talk about a lot in the book. I call it the panda principle. Um,
Love it.
and it's because of some research I read a while back. You know that pandas are very well adapted to eating bamboo.
Yeah.
But actually, their stomach is indistinguishable from the stomach of a brown bear, any other kind of bear.
Really?
They don't have a sort of well adapted stomach. And that's always been a bit of a mystery. I read that a team of scientists in China had cracked this by looking really closely at the panda's diet. And because they're eating bamboo shoots, they're actually so full of protein that they have a normal bear's diet. They have as much
Ah.
protein in their diet as a normal bear. So they actually don't need lots of adaptations to that. And that goes for pretty much all the plants. It's always the shoot is the most palatable, um, and the most nutritious bit. So I say that the aim in the forest garden is to be a bear, not a sheep. You're not trying to eat bulk vegetation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and sheep also get eaten by wolves, so don't be a sheep.
It's in Scotland.
Yes. Imagine if you would get a food forest or like a piece of land that's 10 or 100 hectares. Would you be happy with it, or would you be like, oh my God, I'm used to working on such a small space. What am I gonna do now?
More the latter.
Yeah?
Yeah. One thing I think is really telling is in likes of Indonesia, where forest gardens developed, they don't call them forest gardens, they call them home gardens. And it's very much part of the concept that it's household scale and it's around the home. Um, because you have to be out picking every day. You have to be out in it every day. And I think it's actually quite difficult to scale up. I know some people who are trying it, um, but their setup is a lot less diverse because you've got to the market doesn't want sort of small amounts of diverse stuff. The
No.
market wants predictability. So yeah, 100 hectares, I would have not a clue what to do with. I would do a bit more plant breeding, uh, but yeah, I'm fascinated by attempts to do forest garden farming, but I haven't really had the chance to experiment with it at all myself, and also I think it would be difficult.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, interesting. Cool. Yeah, it's a nice and honest answer. And I totally get it. If you're doing it on a small scale, really intensive, it already takes a lot of work. And I often always tell that to people, to students, or to our clients that start small and make it graspable. But yeah, we've done some forest gardening on larger scales, a couple of hectares or even hundreds of hectares. But most of the time, that's like more in the form of agroforestry and
Mm,
on systems that are not too complex, that are easily graspable, and often we also include animals so that the animals eat the food forest, and then people eat the animals or animal products. That's an easy way because then they do the picking for you.
mm,
Um, but yeah, one of the most interesting examples you see in the tropics, of course, where you see forest gardens that are neatly in rows. One of my favorite examples is Fazenda da Toca in Brazil, not far from Sao Paulo, where Pedro Diniz kind of copied the rainforest and
mhm.
there put it neatly in rows with the principles of Ernst Gotch, the syntropic pioneer. And there they really able to produce a couple of cash crops then in an understory of trees that help, trees that provide other food or timber. So it is possible, but it's another mindset. It's totally different. You're right.
Yeah, I think agroforestry is a different matter. That definitely does scale up in a way that the really diverse systems I sort of think of as home gardens, food forests, don't so much.
Yeah, yeah, no, true. Um, is there a thing that you witnessed in the past that you experienced that you were like, oh my God, this is like one of my biggest aha moments I ever had? You'd like to share?
I Oh, so many.
What's the one that really stands above all the rest? Like, oh my God, when I realized this, then the 1 millionth
um,
tree you planted. No.
no, that was when my back went, and I couldn't
Ah, that's when
plant trees anymore. That wasn't so much an aha moment as an ah moment. I think just the slow realization, the degree to which a forest garden is a system and not just a collection of interesting plants. And I, I say I studied forestry, but I studied forestry in the 80s. Um, so since then, so much has been learned about what's going on in the soil, basically with trees and the mutualisms, sort of first with fungi, but then also with bacteria. Um, and
the Wood
the
Wide Web.
Yeah, exactly. The degree to which an intact forest system is sort of banking nutrients, trading them, doling them out to where they're needed. So I don't feed my forest garden anything that I have to go and get that I derive from oil, or anything. I'll I'll sort of dump in nutrients from any opportunity. So if I'm uh, pruning a neighbour's tree, I'll sort of put the brashings there. But the forest garden is able to kind of eat that and spit it out, and in the form of all these shoots that I can then eat. So I think that's the real sort of change in mindset that you need, that you're managing a system. You're not just sort of planting rows of things.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, nice said. Before we end this podcast, I always ask the question: if you would have a magic wand, what would you do with it?
In a forest garden context, we're talking.
Well, you can go as wide as you can. The entire world is a forest garden, if you think of it.
Oh,
There are no limitations. You can do whatever you want.
Oh, I'd have to come back to you on that one.
Isn't there something that pops into your mind, like on the non-forest garden context?
Yes, but whether it's broadcastable.
Ooh, try it. Let's see if we're gonna cut it out or not.
No, I'm just thinking about just stopping the world in its onward march to crapness that seems to be happening. Pessimistic for a podcast.
Yeah. And what would be your key lever to tackle with your wand? To how do you call it? Go into crapness?
Yeah, I don't know. That is the problem.
Yeah.
Human nature, maybe. The nature of complex systems, which the economy has become. Yeah. If I knew the answer, then possibly I wouldn't need a magic wand to wave.
Well, you can use the magic wand to get an answer. It's also a very valid option.
Mm.
Yeah, maybe remove some of our reptile brains that constantly hijack our system.
Oh, reptile politicians.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting one. No, right, but thank you for being so honest. Yeah, it's a lot of crazy things are indeed going on in this world. How do you deal with that on a personal level to like remain sane in this sometimes insane world? What's your technique?
My technique is I go down my forest garden.
Therapy.
Yeah, that is actually quite an important part of it for me is, you know, I do uh, try to stay engaged with what's going on in the world in productive ways, but the forest garden is something sort of manageable where I know I'm creating something good. Basically, I go down on a summer's day and it's full of butterflies and hoverflies and birds, yet it's also feeding me.
Yeah.
That's kind of within my control, whereas so many things aren't, and it refreshes me, and I'm not sort of doom scrolling and worrying about everything bad that's going on.
That's such a valid point, and it's hard to lose hope if you plant a seed and you see it grow and you see that no matter what kind of stormy weather you have, or no matter how much attacks of little creatures that tree gets, and it keeps on growing, that you're like, okay, but if this tree can survive, I can survive too. So that's so powerful, and yeah, you can manage your food forest. Your neighbor can manage his or her food forest, and if we all manage our little food forest, then yeah, we're it's already a part of a beautiful future, and it's something that people call your circle of influence, and if you focus on that, that's already like a massive thing. We had an episode here with a climate psychologist who told us a very interesting lesson about that no matter in which crapness situation you are, like you call it, yeah, do the things you can control. Can you sleep well? Can you maintain a relationship with your friends or family or your partner? Can you eat well? Like everything you can control, like appreciate it. And he says that that's like the beginning of like inner peace. So I remember that. It's a good one.
And it's not a manifesto for kind of individualism. I think most of our problems these days are systems based, and we need to engage with and change systems. But it's about protecting yourself from burnout while you're trying to do that. You've also got to focus on things that are sustainable, that will sustain you.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And so have you abandoned the forestry life entirely?
I've abandoned daily tree planting,
Yeah.
yes, but I now work for an organisation called Reforesting Scotland, which is a network of people involved in all sorts of aspects of reforestation, and that kind of draws on the experience I got from
Yeah.
that.
So you're still managing that there's going to be more trees in the world, whether it's in your tiny food forest, whether it's via other people's places that read your book, or via the organization.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Alan. And I only wish you lots of luck with planting more trees, because that's one of the most important things in this world right now. We need more trees, and we need to eat more trees in order to plant more trees. Before we end this podcast, any last wise words you would like to share with our audience?
I'm not good at these big open-ended questions. No, nothing springs to mind.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Perfect. All right. Well, it's been a true pleasure meeting you, Alan, having you on the Food Forest podcast. And dear listener, if you enjoyed this, definitely go to www.foodforestpodcast.com, where you can see the show notes, read about Alan's work, find more about his book, but also watch other episodes and learn more about the courses we give, the designs we make, and see how we can work together to create even a more beautiful planet than we already have right now. See you next week for a new episode.